in charge of creating a movement, launching the book Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life. So we're here with Tommy, who has experience in Kundalini Yoga, over 20 years of teaching experience. His new book is launching October 2014. So, Tommy, good to have you in studio. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Zach.
Good. I want to start and get right to the heart of the matter. What is Recovery 2.0?
Recovery 2.0 is a global movement of at this point, about 100,000 people who are committed to the idea that the treatment of addiction should be holistic in nature, that it should include the 12 steps, but it also should include yoga, meditation, and a real look at one's relationship with food. Primarily, we started with a series of online conferences where I would actually interview experts in the field of addiction or in the field of health and wellness or yoga, meditation teachers, nutritionists, anybody that had information that could be helpful to someone on a path of recovery. I started to interview those people. We did our first conference back in March of 2013, and it blew my mind. We had 16,000 people from 70 countries join the conference online. We did it again in September that year. We had 23,000 people, and then we had about 25,000 people in May this year. And so we've quickly realized that there's a tremendous hunger for holistic approaches and treatment of addiction. And I think that this really brings us into this modern era, this modern discussion we're having about how our society treats addiction, how our society treats people who struggle with it. A lot of very interesting conversations taking place right now.
So you talk a lot about the power of breath in yoga practice. So how has the power of breath both changed your life and recovery, and how can it change someone starting along this path of Recovery 2.0?
I had been practicing yoga for many years, and my life was still filled with stress. You would say, or I would say, I was out of alignment with myself, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And what ended up happening is what happens to everybody who's out of alignment. Eventually, the universe will send you a message loud enough for you to hear. And the message came for me in the form of severe back pain. I threw my back out, or that's what it seemed. I didn't know what had happened exactly. A ringing started to go through my hips and my butt, down my legs to my feet, and it was extremely painful. And for about a year, from the moment that started until I found a way through, for about a year I was crippled. I could move, but not well. I certainly couldn't run. I was slow in my movements. I was in pain all day long, just simply in pain. I was 35 years old at the time, and I had no idea what I had done. I couldn't point to an injury or a specific moment when this had started. It came on, and it never left. I started to seek out every kind of healer you can imagine, right? And I was living in Los Angeles, so that's just about every kind of healer there is, And nothing was working for me. I was trying, various forms of chiropractic. I was trying more yoga, less yoga, no yoga, different kinds of trainers in the gym, the Alexander technique, different kinds of meditation work. Nothing was working for me. I didn't know what to do. One day, I finally broke down and I got a MRI at a prominent hospital in Los Angeles. You've got severe degenerative disc disease. And you have 2 herniations, and we're going to have to manage your pain for the rest of your life with drugs. And eventually, we're going to have to look to surgery. I'm 35 years old, standing there in this hospital, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you telling me? There has to be another way. But I didn't know what that other way was. A few days after that, a friend came up to me and said, Tommy, if you want to fix your back, you should go see this man named Guru Prem. And I said, sort of closed-minded and angry and tired of it all, I said, no, I'm not going to see a guru. So that very same day, I go out to dinner with my wife. And there's a very bubbly woman at the table next to ours, and she introduces herself to us. We strike up a conversation. And she says, I've just gotten to LA. And we're like, oh, well, what brings you here? She says, well, I came to see this man named Guru Prem. So there it was, the universe giving me a second chance once again. So I called Guru Prem the next morning, and I said, apparently I'm supposed to come see you. And he said, well, we better get you in here then. And I went to Beverly Hills to where all the gurus are, it's where his office was. And I knocked on the door, and out he came, and it was exactly what I had imagined. White turban, glasses, long beard, flowing white robes, the whole deal. And literally, in my inner dialogue, the first words out of my mouth were, holy shit. I can't believe it's come to this. Like, oh my God. Well, I sat down in his office. There was a yoga mat on the floor. I sat on one end of the yoga mat. I faced him. He was on the other end of the yoga mat. Very intimate, right? And he just had this big smile on his face. And I was in so much pain. But I looked at him. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. Like, for the past year, I'd been suffering so badly, and there was no way through. And I just didn't know that there was going to be a way I could heal this. But sitting there opposite him, I knew I was going to be okay. I wasn't cured. I was still in pain, but I just knew that I was going to find a way to heal this. I was going to be okay. And I started working with him, and the first thing he taught me was the breath. Taught me how to breathe. So for me, my rebirth, if you will, started with me learning how to really breathe. I learned the 5 uses of the breath. We inhale, we bring in prana, oxygen. We exhale, apana. We let go of CO2 and other waste products. We use our exhale to express ourselves. The exhale carries our words. The fourth purpose is to enter a meditative state. You can use your breath and control it to enter a meditative state. And the fifth is something that comes right out of my book, Recovery 2.0, is to break through the frequency of addiction. So we use the breath for all these purposes. It's with us from the beginning. It's the first thing we do is take an inhale. The last thing we do is take an exhale. And that's our life right there. And the interesting thing is the more we pay attention to the breath, the more opportunity, the more health, the more wellness, the more calmness we seem to be able to develop in our life. That's just the way it works. So that's where my teaching with everybody begins there. When I see somebody who can't breathe well, we begin right there. And that's, by the way, that's most everybody.
Yoga and recovery is now become a very, rightfully so, a buzz, almost at the beginning stages of yoga and recovery. So rehabilitation centers, addiction centers are wanting to integrate somehow yoga classes, yoga philosophy in there, with conjunction with the 12 steps, which is, great. I see you giving the thumbs up, which is thumbs up, but where do you start? Where do you go from there? Where do you go from your first class with Guru Prem to continue thriving in recovery?
I broke the book down, Recovery 2.0, the book, I broke it down into 4 parts. The first part is to really look at the roots of addiction. We cover family history, we cover your environmental history, and we cover your food choice history. The second part of the book is a deep dive into the 12 steps. So that's always going to be a piece of it for me, is if anyone's stuck in acute addiction, you start there. That's Recovery 1.0. You work the 12 steps to the best of your ability with a sponsor, and there's a transformation that takes place there. So in the second part, we do a deep dive there, and we look at best practices for getting through them. And also we look at some of the pitfalls that you want to avoid through going through that process. Third part of the book, all right, so now you're on a path of recovery. Life is going to happen to you. Like a lot of people have the mistaken notion, once I get sober, life's just going to be roses from here on out. It's just going to be lovely, you know what I mean? And it doesn't play out that way. So the third part of this book is really about understanding what to do when life happens, when relationships become challenging, when job and money and abundance becomes challenging, when your body and health and medical issues become challenging. What do you do? If you're on a path of recovery, how should you be? The fourth part of the book is really all about the practices. It's the upgrade, right? It's all the practices and all the things that you need to know to address life when life shows up. So it's really a comprehensive sort of walk through what a person needs to know in early recovery, but also years into the process. A lot of people will be drawn to this book because they're maybe 10 years sober, 15 years sober, 5 years sober, but they feel like there's something missing in their life. Why they're struggling in some kind of way. And this book really helps nudge gently but firmly, nudge a person forward on their path. That's really what it's about. So, what do you do next? Well, you pick up this book, Recovery 2.0, for one thing. And I mean that. I believe in it wholeheartedly. If you're talking about specifically on the path of yoga, well, you develop a daily yoga practice. And that doesn't mean you have to go to a 90-minute yoga class every day, but you're working a sadhana practice, and sadhana really is about, sadhana just is simply a word that means spiritual practice. For me, I try to add the word morning on there, so it's morning spiritual practice. Because for me, if I don't get it out of the way right up front, I'll be thinking about it at the very least for the rest of the day, and then it might not happen. So if I get to my sadhana, my spiritual practice in the morning, things are just going to go well for me that day. It doesn't mean I'm going to have, only wonderful things happen in my life. But no matter what's happening in my life, joy or challenge, I will have the resources to deal with it in a more graceful way than if I hadn't done my morning practice. So what's next is you get with a teacher who can help you develop a morning practice.
Great. You're thriving. You're glowing. You're brilliant. You are a teacher to thousands. You're going to reach literally tens of thousands of people and help those suffering through addiction. And I've read your story to the place of suffering that you came from. What I've noticed about, in studying a little bit about the 12 steps and looking from yoga's perspective, is that yoga works on the sense of identity, the sense of expanding our sense of identity. And the 12 steps really, you start out owning that you are an addict, which is so important to own that. But then how do you get past this sense of owning this identity, this, I think, limited sense of you're more than just an addict? And so switch from the sense of you're an addict to thriving.
I'm really grateful that you asked this question. It's very at the forefront of my mind almost every day. At the beginning of my recovery, it was important for me to express that I had been, I used that terminology, and I used it in the context of a 12-step program because, number one, everyone else in the program used that terminology, and so it helped me to fit into what was happening. But number two, at the time, it was actually accurate for me to say, I'm Tommy and I'm an addict. Because I was one. And I was actually behaving like one. Now that wasn't ultimately the truth of me. But for that time period, I had come out of a decade of behaving very much like an addict. Right? That was such a piece of what I had become. I needed to claim it and own it. Now, as I move through the process of recovery, and I actually recover from addiction, recover from alcoholism, recover from gambling, recover from cigarette smoking, recover from codependency, as I go through that process, I truly feel that the languaging and the way that one refers to oneself must change. Because it would no longer be accurate to say, my name's Tommy, I'm an addict. That isn't, in fact, the truth today. I could say, I'm Tommy and I experience addictive thinking. That could be true today. Sometimes I can feel that addictive thinking come up, and I'm like, oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting that I have that today? But I don't think about drugs and alcohol. I literally don't. In terms of, I never have a craving or a thought, ooh, wouldn't that be good? I wish I could have a glass of wine or smoke a joint or whatever the thing would be. Like, I never have those thoughts. I prefer my life as a person on this path than a person who's trying to tinker around with my vision of reality through an external substance. That's my commitment to myself, and I just absolutely love it. I have recovered. So it wouldn't make sense for me to use that languaging anymore. So what I would say is, I'm Tommy, I'm a person in long-term recovery. Or I'm Tommy, I recovered from alcoholism, or I recovered from addiction, or whatever would be appropriate for the place that I found myself. But I wouldn't use that language anymore of, I'm Tommy, I'm an addict, because I just feel that would send a certain signal to both to myself and to other people that I haven't gotten beyond it. And I haven't gotten better. And
it's almost a stage of the recovery process.
Well, I think it ought to be.
Yeah.
I think it really ought to be.
And so what if you don't make it past that stage? Then you have to own you're an addict for the rest of your life.
Well, I think that if somebody follows the tenets that are laid out in Recovery 2.0 in the book, and you work a really solid foundation, a Recovery 1.0 foundation, which is the 12 steps, and then you start working with teachers and guides who can help you along the path of yoga and along the path of meditation. People who work on a spiritual path make progress. It's not a theory. If you put your heart and your mind into it, you make effort towards it, and you work with teachers and other guides who've been there before you, you're going to make progress. So the idea that someone's going to be an addict for the rest of their life, someone could choose to be that, but if you chose not to be that and you did the right things, you wouldn't be an addict for the rest of your life. You would find yourself beyond it. And especially, I talk a lot about the frequency of addiction, this energetic attunement, if you will, that sort of keeps us stuck in an addictive pattern. There's a way beyond that. And, people get over drugs and alcohol like I did, and I might find myself still stuck in the energy, the frequency of addiction, which is why I was gambling and which is why I was smoking and having other issues. But there was a way beyond that too. I didn't know it at the time, but I found teachers to guide me through. Then I got to that next level, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, I feel fantastic in my life. I like who I am today. It doesn't mean I don't get stressed. It doesn't mean I don't get tired or lose my temper or do human things. I do all of those things. But that sense of wanting life to be different than it is gone. That sense that things are supposed to be some other way, that's gone. Like, it's the way it's supposed to be for me today. And that's very, very gratifying and wonderful gift of recovery.
It's almost like, you're giving up who you were. As you let go of that addiction, you're giving up what you were. And then there's this open book, but then you tend to fill it with what's next best, maybe cigarettes, or the next best thing. But what I'm hearing from you and in my own personal practice and experience is really this continual self-transformation, this continuing betterment. You can get stuck with just turning off that addiction to succumb to all your other healthier, quote unquote, healthier addictions.
Right. It's a real, it's practically a cliche, right? You put down one addiction and you pick up another set of addictions, right? And I think there's this misunderstanding that that's okay somehow. It isn't okay at the level of the individual. In other words, I don't feel good when I engage in these petty addictions. I can even go, even caffeine, I will have black tea sometimes, get on a run with it, All of a sudden I notice I'm not sleeping so well. All of a sudden I notice I'm a little short-tempered, and it doesn't serve me in my life. So I let it go. It doesn't serve me, so it has to go. It also doesn't work sort of in terms of, people who are on the path of recovery. If they allow these other addictions into their life, it still keeps them in that frequency of addiction. So this thing I'm trying to express, which is a reality of, hey, you can truly move beyond addiction. First of all, someone has to inspire you to it. Meaning, someone has to stand as a victory, as an example, like, hey, this is possible. Wouldn't it be interesting to see if it could be possible for you? But the only reason anybody would ever shoot for it is if they knew it was possible. Most people don't shoot for things if it's impossible. So you got to know that letting go of these petty addictions is going to open up a new door for you. It's going to advance you to another level beyond what you may have been told or what you may think is possible.
Yeah, and this goes into you're a proponent of getting high.
Oh, I'm a huge proponent.
I totally
huge.
Agree with you. And can you talk about that? Because
yes.
That's really clever.
I love it. Well, I walk into a room in rehab, and the first thing I want to tell these guys and these gals is, your party has not ended. The party has just changed. You've got a different set of rules and a different situation, but there's a party going on here. And I talk a bit about the infinite pharmacy within. And the infinite pharmacy within each of us is really known as the endocrine system. It's your hormonal and chemical system in the body. It works in close conjunction with the nervous system in the brain. And the head pharmacist, the master of the endocrine system is the pituitary gland. And that sort of controls the flow of what comes out of the pharmacy. Now, drug addicts, alcoholics, people use addiction to feel better are using an addictive behavior, usually a substance outside of themselves, to tinker with the inner chemistry. You're taking something outside and you're mixing it with whatever's going on inside, and you're doing that because you feel it creates a better result for you. Which is to say, you're not satisfied with the result of your own endocrine system, of the infinite pharmacy within. Now, after you tinker with the pharmacy for a while with substances, the endocrine system gets thrown way off balance. And you tend to now need more of the substances that you've been choosing in the first place, because now, if your endocrine system was even ever running well, it certainly isn't now, because for the longest time, you've been changing the way it works. Okay. Flash forward, somebody gets sober, or somebody gets clean. Somebody moves onto a path of recovery. Now, part of the recovery process, and part of why early recovery is so difficult, is because you have to give the body time to recalibrate. The nervous system has to be rebuilt. The endocrine system needs to be rebalanced. And that takes time. Part of the reason people have such a hard time coming off of heroin or methamphetamine is because it so severely messes with your brain and your endocrine system that it takes a long time for the body to figure out how to create the right mix of chemicals internally once again. So, what I say, when the endocrine system's working, it distributes the right drugs in the right amounts to the right places at the right time. That's just simply called feeling good. When you feel good, that's what's happening. But it takes a long time for the body to recalibrate, to get that mix correct, and to be able to actually help you to feel a sense of joy in your life. Even if everything outside you in the world was going really well for you, in early recovery, sometimes you just can't feel it because you have so severely thrown off the endocrine system. So when we talk about getting high in recovery, we're talking about learning how to tap into the innate wisdom of the body, the innate wisdom of the endocrine system. Then you can learn how to really get a sense of being high. All that means is I'm thinking clearly. I have a sense of lightness. It feels comfortable to be in my body, in my skin. My mind, my mental acuity is sharp. I'm on it today. I feel like I'm in the zone, you know? That is what we're after. And so I encourage people in recovery, look, we got to get high every day, just through natural means. And the way we get high is through the methods that we must employ to get high have to have short-term gain, but also long-term gain. So with drugs and alcohol, other addictive behaviors, you may get a short-term gain. Oh, I've smoked pot. I feel good right now. But then there's a price you have to pay for that. You drink alcohol. Oh, I feel a little more comfortable with myself right now. But there's a price you have to pay for that. When you get high in the ways I'm talking about, you get high, you get something in the short term, there's a gift there for you, which is I feel clear-headed and wonderful and alive and joyous. No price to pay. There's no hangover. There's no come down. There's no, oh boy, I shouldn't have done that. 100% across the board, it's just a great thing. I'll give you an example. So, taking a walk in nature, going to work out at the gym, practicing yoga and meditation, connecting with another human being who needs your help and being of service, being in love with someone and being present for somebody, doing some kind of art or artwork, singing, dancing, listening to music, praying, digging deep into your own questioning process, being willing to be there and present with yourself, eating a big, incredible organic salad with lots of sprouts and nuts and seeds and just really like you feel it going into every cell in your body. And it's like, wow, I'm high right now. This is the real thing, right? Drinking a 24-ounce green juice packed with nutrients, packed with minerals. Like, how do you beat it? So there's so many ways to get high in recovery. But it may just take a little time before it feels like the highs you've been creating artificially, or it feels as gratifying as that. For me right now, a 24-ounce green juice is as gratifying as anything I've ever done. It just so happens that the drugs and the alcohol that I used to do in the past were more like a nuclear bomb going off in my system. Like it was boom, so much impact that for a long time in early recovery, guess what I was looking for? Impact. I wanted something that I felt, I want to go after it. Like, what could it be? I need to jump out of an airplane, right? That's impact. I feel it, or God, I need to go out with 5 women because one isn't enough. I've got to really, go out and conquer the world. It's just like, it's like, these are things people think of in early recovery, seriously. Yeah. And then you got to get past that phase of needing something that's got such great impact. And now you're getting in touch with the more subtle. And there's the thrill of the subtle. And that's exciting.
Well, I'm very excited for you, Tommy.
Thank you so much.
Buy the book, Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life. Very exciting time in yoga and recovery. How can people stay in contact with you, Tommy?
Best way is just through my website, tommyrosen.com. And there's also, we have a movement online. We use #MoveBeyond. That's #MoveBeyond. And we ask people to, any post that they make about recovery or addiction of any kind, use #MoveBeyond. And in particular, put up a video of yourself. It could be 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or it could be 10 or 20 minutes that tells why you're a success story on the path of recovery, and help uplift other people and help them to see what a success story looks like. #MoveBeyond. So we do that.
Nice. Thank you, and have a great one, guys.
Thank you, Zach.
See you next time.